You know what's wild? Your biggest failure
Powered by
might actually be your
Riverside FM.
biggest advantage. You just haven't thanked it yet. Let's get into today's episode. Hi everyone, welcome to the Failure Academy. I'm your host, Diana. If this is your first time here, this is a podcast where we talk about failure like it's actually useful instead of something to be ashamed of. Because here's what I believe passionately: failure is the opposite of success, it's the raw material of success. If you're tired of those shiny stories about success that leave out the messy, complicated truth of how things actually work, you're in the right place. Now, I've been thinking about something all week that I just want to share with you in this episode. You know how when someone wins an award or post about their big promotion on LinkedIn, they always do that whole thank you speech thing. They thank their team, their family, their mentor, sometimes even the barista. But there's always someone missing from that list, someone who probably did more heavy lifting than anyone else. I realize we never thank our failures, which is weird when you think about it, because I guarantee you every single success story you admire has failure written all over it. I was scrolling through Instagram last week and I saw this entrepreneur posting about hitting 7 figures. Beautiful post, really inspiring. She thanked everyone who believed in her, talked about the late nights, the sacrifices, but what she didn't mention was that I happen to know she failed at least 3 businesses before this one was successful, like really failed. One of them left her really broke, and I'm not saying she should have aired all her dirty laundry, but it got me thinking. Why do we edit failure out of our success stories like it's some embarrassing relative we don't want people to meet? Here's what I think is really going on. We are scared that if we admit failure played a role, people will think we got lucky or that we are not actually that good. Like somehow acknowledging that we screwed up a bunch of times diminishes the win. But that's backward, right? Because the truth is, if you succeeded without failing fast, you probably didn't aim high enough. You probably played it safe. Think about it. Every person you really admire, every business that changed the game, every innovation that matters today, they all have failed before. They all have failure stories, not despite their successes, but because their failures taught them things they couldn't have learned any other way. Here's something nobody wants to admit: success lies to you. This is my argument. When something works out, it's easy to convince yourself you had it all figured out, that you saw it coming, that you're just naturally gifted. But failure tells you the truth. It shows you exactly where you're thinking of, where your assumptions are wrong, where you need to get better. It's like having a brutally honest friend who cares about you enough to tell you when you have spinach in your teeth. And here's the thing: that honesty is exactly what you need if you want to get really, really good at anything. I used to think failure was just the price you pay for taking risks. Like, okay, sometimes things don't work out, and that's life. But I've started to see things differently. Failure isn't the cost of taking risks, it's the education you get from taking risks. Every time something doesn't work, you lean forward and learn something you couldn't have learned any other way. You develop pattern recognition. You build resilience muscles you didn't know you had. You know Sarah Blakely, the Spans founder? She got rejected by manufacturer after manufacturer for 2 years, 2 straight years. But each rejection taught her something about her pitch, about the industry, about what people actually wanted. By the time someone finally said yes, she was ready. Or let's talk about James Dyson, 26 prototypes before he got his vacuum design right. He didn't see those as 5,126 failures. He saw them as 5,126 ways that didn't work, which meant he was 5,126 steps closer to finding the way that did. When something goes wrong now, instead of just feeling bad about it, I try to ask myself 3 questions. What did this teach me about the problem I was trying to solve? Sometimes what you think is the problem isn't actually the problem. What did this teach me about my approach? Maybe the goal was right, but the method was wrong. And what did this teach me about myself? This is the big one. Sometimes failure shows you that you're tougher than you thought. Sometimes it shows you that you are chasing the wrong thing entirely. Here's something I've noticed: the people who are most successful are also the people who fail the most. Not because they're unlucky, but because they've learned to fail fast and fail smart. They're not trying to avoid failure, they're trying to get their failures out of the way quickly so that they can get to what works. It's like they've figured out the failure isn't just part of the process, not something to be ashamed of. And once you start thinking about it that way, everything changes. You start taking bigger swings because you are now not terrified of striking out. You start experimenting more because you know that even if it doesn't work, you learn something valuable. You want to know something crazy? Your failures might actually be your biggest competitive advantage. Here's why. Because while everyone else is trying to look perfect and pretending they never mess up, you're over here learning to walk. You are here learning at warp speed. Every time failure gives you information your competitors don't have. Every time you bounce back, you are building resilience that they haven't developed. Every lesson you learn the hard way is a lesson you never forget. Plus, when you're honest about your failures, you connect with people in a way that success stories never can, because everyone's failed at something, but not everyone is willing to talk about it. So here's what I'm challenging you to do. I'm going to do this too because I think it will be good for both of us. Think about your biggest professional win, the thing you are most proud of. Now think about the failure that made that success possible, the one that taught you what you needed to know, or pushed you in the right direction, or forced you to develop skills you didn't have. Write that failure a thank you note, not to post anywhere, just for you. Thank it for what it gave you. Acknowledge its role in your story. Because here's what happens when you do that. You stop being afraid of failure. You start seeing it as a feedback instead of judgment. And that changes how you approach everything. The formula to success is mostly known as dream plus hard work equals to success. But here's my refined formula for success. Dream plus action plus learning from what doesn't work equals success. That middle part is very crucial. That's where all the magic happens. That's where you figure out what you're actually good at and what actually matters or what actually works. Look, I know this might sound weird, but I think we need to start treating our failures like valuable team members instead of embarrassing mistakes. Because they are valuable, they're the ones doing the teaching, the redirecting, the toughening up. Your failures aren't the opposite of your success, they're part of the same story. They're not the villain, they're the mentor who shows up in disguise. And if you're going through a failure right now, if something just didn't work out the way you hoped, maybe you're not looking at an ending, maybe you're looking at the beginning of something better. You just don't know it yet. That's it for today's episode. But before you go, I want to ask you something. What failure in your life deserves more credit than it gets? Seriously, think about it for a second. I bet there's one that comes to mind immediately. Here's what I want you to do. Take a screenshot of this episode and share it on your socials. Tell people about that failure and how it actually helped you become the person you are today. Use the hashtag Failure Academy so that I can see it and share your story. Because when we start talking about failure, honestly, we give other people permission to do the same. You can find me on Instagram, The Failure Academy, or shoot me an email at failureacademypod@gmail.com. I read every message, and honestly, your stories inspire half of the episodes I do. I read every message, and honestly, your stories inspire half the episodes I do. And look, if you're getting value from the Failure Academy, the best way to support this podcast is to subscribe, comment, share, and leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening. It takes 30 seconds, but it helps other people who need to hear this message actually find it. Plus, it tells me if this is hitting the way I hoped it would. Next week, I want to talk about something that might sound controversial. Why a little bit of delusion might actually be essential for success. It's not what you think. Until then, remember, your failures are footnotes in your success story. They are your co-authors. Talk to you soon, and bye for now.